Okay. Um, all right. God, I still don't know what I'm doing. Man, is this even recording? Ugh. Okay, I gotta test this volume here. All right, that'll do. I got my little video up in the top left. Uh, jeez. Okay. So I am. Okay. So I'm going to be changing up the format of Illegitimate Scholar a little bit. I mean, I'm not changing up the format of the actual videos, or the podcast episodes themselves. So the podcast episodes are going to be now once every 2 weeks, as in the original format of the podcast episodes will be every 2 weeks. So I'm going to do the episodes as they have been, and those will come out every other week. And then this is the ideal. I'll get into this in a little bit. I mean, I'll get into this schedule in a little bit. Man, I should have planned this out more. Okay, so Illegitimate Scholar podcast in its form will be every other week, and those episodes will ideally be out on Monday. Every other week, as in the opposite, every other week on Mondays, there's going to be a release of a conversation with someone else. And then Thursday night, I'm planning on doing a live show with current events, listener questions, anything. I have a number of questions that have come up over time. Uploading this to the podcast feed as well. I'm going to aim to do that every Friday. So it's going to be live on Thursday night, and then it'll be on the podcast feed on Friday. So what's going to happen is there will be Illegitimate Scholar on Monday, an episode in the format that there always has been, and then the next Monday there will be an interview or a conversation. The next Monday there will be a Legitimate Scholar again. This will all be on the same podcast. Ideally, all of it on YouTube as well. And then every Thursday or every Friday for the podcast feed, every Thursday night for the live show, there will be a recording of the unedited live show. So things every week from now on. Hopefully, it might take me a week to get into the groove of it because I've been learning a lot of different stuff. But that's what's going to happen. So what this show will be, and I'm still working out the kinks of, but unlike my Illegitimate Scholar episodes, which tend to be heavily planned, heavily edited, which is why I'm going down to once every 2 weeks because I think I need more time for it to work. I need more time for me to figure out figure out how exactly I want to do it. Lost my train of thought because I was trying to do two things at once. Producing myself. It's rough. It's rough. Is someone watching? Is that you, Higgy? Someone's here. I don't really know how to tell. I go to YouTube. I need to make sure if the chat works. So, two watching right now. Is anyone in the chat? I am, I'm technologically really poor. Not doing well. Not doing well. Man, I forgot to do the tags. gosh, how do people do this? Oh, hey, Daniel. Okay, so the chat works from that window. Okay. Okay. This is basically where I'll start. I don't know how I'm going to do this on the podcast. The indictment has been unsealed. I Okay, so that's new information. Planned this last night. Apparently, the indictment's been unsealed. But I'm not too worried about the specifics of the indictment. What I'm really worried about is um, what I'm really worried about is the president was even able to be indicted, because I did an episode on this a little while ago. The amount of laws that we have in the United States, number of laws that we have, means that everyone is basically doing something illegal. So when Trump, who is obviously not well liked by the establishment, by Democrats as well as Republicans, he's being indicted on things related to classified documents. And we also know that Joe did something similar, where he had classified documents in his Corvette, apparently, and a few other places. And it's just, yes, what he but the fact that he was arrested while other people are not, at the same time that, in the face of everybody, in the face of everybody over the last years, decades, really, many different politicians have just routinely committed heinous crimes. The insider trading of Republicans and Democrats. You think this is the end of Trump? I don't know, dude. We're gonna see. I speculate on this type of thing, honestly, um, because I always end up being wrong. Donald Trump has been indicted on 7 counts in the classified documents. I don't know what the result of this is going to be, but it shows something very clear in the culture that Donald Trump. Man, I'm all over the place. I'm gonna have to get. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do this a little bit better. But I'll get better at it over a while. Please bear with me, especially if you're listening on the podcast. Um, and what I should do is I should go back to the questions later. So he's got these charges, but we have so many laws in the United States. There are so many laws that anyone could be breaking a law at any time. People break laws. And they even, any normal person. A guy wrote a book called Three Felonies a Day, about an American person commits 3 felonies, American professional. And the crimes that we have on the books are so numerous that they weren't able to be. We had a computer that was capable of doing it. Some guy in the 80s, this was something I went into in the episode, tried to count the laws, and he said you couldn't do it. You would have died and been resurrected 3 times before you would figure out how many federal laws the United States has. I remember that weird way to say it, but Pelosi, as a Democrat who made hundreds of millions of dollars, obviously from insider trading, not technically insider trading in the sense that she wasn't indicted or arrested for it, but like in your face doing it. Scandal where $50 million are of illicit funds are funding the Democratic Party. It's the same with Republicans. I mean, maybe not as large as the FTX thing, which nobody seems to care about, but the people like God, what's his name with the iPad? Guy from Texas. He also committed trading, and the war crimes. You know, and not to mention the war crimes overseas, just to mention what they do in the United States, the stuff that they do. But it's not that this crime was committed. It's that's not crime being committed is not what's actually important, because this crime that that he's supposed to have committed, that has to do with classified documents, we know that other people have committed the same crime. The actual reason that Donald Trump is being arrested is for something other than that crime. And people will try to argue with you about that, and they'll do the crime. It's like, yes, he did the crime, and many other people did many other crimes. But when you have so many laws, you have so many crimes, and then you have people committing those crimes but not being charged for them, and then sometimes someone does get charged with it, you know that it's not the fact that they actually committed the crime that got them arrested. What actually got them arrested was something other than committing the crime. And when you look at laws, when you look at the history of laws, they're rooted in tradition. They're rooted in custom and tradition. So people in any part of the world, but where laws first come from, in the West, we generally point to Hammurabi's code in Babylon. And the problem there was that the Indians were living under laws, but they didn't know what the laws written down. They weren't explicit. People could guess because they kind of understood based on custom and tradition what the laws were. So people kind of knew, but it was a wanton application of justice. Whenever they ended up wanting to charge somebody with something, whenever they wanted to try somebody. So what they did was they wrote down the laws. There was like Robbie's code. It's one of the first legal frameworks that we have evidence. This meant is that everybody then knew what the expectations were. And this was the first time that law had moved from custom and tradition, just the people who had created the rules acted, the ones in charge allowed to exercise force on other people. This then turns into a codification of law. So it's written down. And over time, those laws change. And what we have in the United States is we have a system, and this is rooted in the English common law system. But in theory, having laws makes it very clear what you can and can't do. And that's what it's supposed to be in a society that is supposed to run well. Everybody knows what to do. So if they do something wrong, they understood that they did something wrong and understood why they might be getting arrested for it. And they would have been doing something wrong on purpose. But what happens is that if you have laws that are so numerous, like we have in the United States, they come to a place where there are so many laws, and most of them are in any way, that we don't actually know what is illegal. And, we mostly know what's illegal, but when you get to the periphery, you have these laws enforced. What ends up happening is that a custom and tradition, through custom and tradition, as a law. It's like, in certain places, jaywalking is not a big deal. So even though it's technically against the law, you try to walk across the street, you're not going to get arrested. But if you get arrested, it's a deviation from that. It's a deviation from. And this is what happened with Trump. It was through custom and tradition. Trump had done something pretty much everybody does. I mean, maybe not the classified document, something that Biden also did, and other people have for it. But when he does it, he's facing charges of it, and it's scary that this is happening. I don't. You don't even have to like Trump to be worried about what this means, because I don't necessarily like Trump. I like him more than I used to, but he is. You should know that, or that other people have done this same thing that he has done. You know, I'm beating a dead horse now. Let me see here. Doug Dimmadome. You think this is the end of Trump? If the charges stick, and it depends how other people react, but it seems like both the Democratic and the Republican establishment is not really willing to stand up for him. So I don't know. I don't know. I really am not sure how far they're going to go. I know that I'm not sure how the I'm not sure how important I think the 2020 is going to be. I think the 2028 election is probably going. That's just a gut feeling I have, and it's from the what's it called? George Friedman, the Crisis book. I mean, he has established 2028 as the time. It feels like we're coming close to a real shakeup in the shakeup in our society and our culture, and it seems like we need some new government system. I'm not saying throw out the Constitution, but I'm saying like we might need something else. We might need some change in the system towards something new. Similarly to the after the Civil War and after World War II, to meet the new demands of the modern world. You memorize the first 50. That is something. These indictments validate both extremes, Donnie the victim and Donnie the villain. It might affect the opinions of the 15 people still uncertain, but I think it's safe to say that this isn't the end. Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily the end of Trump. I think for people like me that are in the middle, it's you know, the one there is that the 15 people still uncertain because I fuck Trump. But when sorry, I shouldn't be swearing on YouTube. Not sorry to you guys, but sorry to myself for trying to keep my retention when I go live. Yeah, I mean they validated him as a victim, right? So Donald Trump, he's over here, he's saying they're after me, the deep state's after me, and then the deep state goes after him. It's literal conspiracy. I mean it's a open conspiracy. And so they really have to be a victim in this situation, and they have victimized him. I think he would have as much support right now if they hadn't indicted him twice. I mean, I'm very much it, to me a little bit, and I don't necessarily like him very much, but if they're going to be trying to arrest him, I mean, he's right then. He's a lot more right than otherwise. Okay. Oh, look at this shit. The CIA. It's Pride Month, okay? CIA's 2023 theme for Pride Month is Welcome Me. Wellness, equity. Oh, this welcome. Welcome me. Wellness, equity, LGBTQ plus. Community openness. Pride Month is an occasion for all of us at the agency to the rich history, community, and mission contributions of our LGBT officers. Hashtag Pride 2023 from the CIA on Twitter. And the image is what I assume to be a CIA building. And it's lit up in sort of a rainbow. It looks to be some stars superimposed. It's a weird edited image. And there's a CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, little water right, and it says CIA Pride. And the I in Pride and are both like the same. And it was posted at 9 a.m. on June 8th, 2023. So someone had to create this with some sort of skills and then plan this as a post for later. And I just have to assume that the CIA has hired some like liberal arts major from some weird university, and then they posted it, and they got hired by the CIA. That they really feel like they're doing something good, and they're how ignoring the damages of the CIA, how the CIA toppled democratically elected governments, how they killed all these people, how they assisted in murder in all these places. And it's, talk about this type of stuff, people come at me like, oh, well, is it bad to be for you? And I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm not necessarily saying that at all. But isn't it like it's really representative of a super super weird misplace of priorities when we're looking at an organization like the CIA, which I think people should really agree is which I gotta where I can't see them. I'm gonna work out how I have this set up. This is what this is for. Yeah, my ADHD ass is like having a hard time not getting to um but like the CIA, they do all this horrible stuff, but like what's important is the LGBTQ. It's like with rainbow flags on them flown by black trans women drone operators. These are the values of our country, and you have like a certain amount of values that you can have. Like there's a certain like you fill up 100% of your fill for values. You can't care about everything. It's always a trade-off. And I just don't feel like LGBTQ plus CI is something that I can get behind. And I think that anyone who does is I don't think I want to talk to that person. And sorry, but like understand that like come on, man. Shit. All right. I'm going to these comments. I feel like most people understand what's going on, and to be support for him is going to skyrocket this time again. This time around. Yeah, I think you're right. And the only way, and I mean maybe they'll manage to do this, it's a nice representation of the I mean I don't what do you mean by that? It's I guess it is, but the CIA is, the CIA that calls themselves we are the nation's first line of defense. We accomplish what others and go where others cannot go. Yeah, that's because others are, you know, held back by the Constitution and by the checks and balances of our government, but the CIA just kind of does whatever they want. Um, Daniel. Yeah, Doug, I mean, I think you're right. Support is going to skyrocket. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But I certainly have grown more support for him. Looks like they hired for someone for five. I bet they're paying somebody a salary of like $90,000 a year to make stuff like this. And they're wasteful. Plot twist: RFK beat Biden. Doubt it. The DNC will not allow it. Remember that the Democratic National Convention is not a public entity. Neither is the Republican National Convention. While the American elections, the actual election for the president that is done with the approved candidates, those people, the RNC and the to the same standards that our general elections are. And even then, depending on what you think about the legitimacy of our elections, you might think that, but RNC and DNC are way less. Like there's no protections on them because they're private organizations. So they can kind of do whatever they want. I mean, they used super delegates to screw over Bernie in 2016, and they either have something on him or Bernie is just done fighting. But, he rolled over and he just supports the neoliberals, even though he didn't even get a cabinet position. But yeah, that's how it goes. Let's see. Okay, so USAID says it is halting all food aid to Ethiopia amid diversions. So the aid agency cites a widespread and coordinated campaign to divert aid in Ethiopia, where 20 million people are in need. So the United States Aid Agency announced it's halting all food aid to all of Ethiopia, pushing aid to the war-torn Tigray region, citing illicit diversions. So that's like giving the aid where it's not supposed to go. The Tigray way is there was a civil war. Some of the violence is still happening. The Tigrays, it's one region of Ethiopia that kind of wanted to go their own way, and they weren't allowed to. The Ethiopian government wanted to keep them on, so they have stuck around. Okay, so they suspended the food aid in this time of, like, is that really, look, I don't know too much about what is going on here, but it just seems to me that pausing the while there are people there that need food because it's gotten worse and the food is being diverted to the wrong, it seems like nonsense, especially because the US government gives money to corrupt places all over the world. The amount of money that was going into Ukraine, which we're not going to get into because I don't want to talk about it because I'm going to get death threats and shit for it, so I'm not going to do that. So they've frozen the food aid, but they haven't frozen food aid to other places. And really, the one thing that I want to say about this, the one thing that I really want to say about this is that if you are accepting money and aid and from other foreign governments, and you're now that food, your people are getting that food, and this works on a smaller scale as well. Your people are getting that food, and when they get that food, they get to eat, right? But that makes your people dependent on this food aid. And what that means is that the US, for some reason, or whoever is giving this food aid, can cut off that food aid at any time. If you didn't have the food aid coming in, then naturally enough, people would just create the food. They would make an industry that created the food there if there was enough natural resource and everything. But it's tied with the aid that they come in and they screw with your government. I mean, that's, I can't go too deep into that right now. That could be its own episode. But along with aid that is given to any country, it comes with caveats. It comes with expectations. And even if it doesn't come with expectations, when they start giving you food aid, sort of aid, and then you then start to depend on that aid, that leverage over you, where even if they didn't expect anything from you at first, once you expect it, once you expect that aid, once you need that aid to survive, then game over, man, because now they can control you. Yeah, Daniel says this is also an argument for downsizing welfare. Yeah, it is. Look, I generally agree with some sorts of welfare. I think we have a lot more corporate welfare waste rather than welfare that helps needy people. But sometimes people need help. But at the same time, for who is taking that aid, I would say it's very important to have a good relationship with that, and we should have a good cultural expectation of that welfare, because I think it does trap people. And there's people who have talked about that and who do talk about that. Okay, this is my favorite article. Party with controversy, Spain's festival of Moors and Christians. So this is a festival that happens every year, apparently. I would love to go to this thing eventually in Spain. Eldas, Spain. Okay. This is a festival that happens every year where, oh God, audio issues. Is it still glitching? What's wrong with the video? Why is this happening to me? You're losing 15 seconds for every minute of playtime? I need to hardwire this shit. Has it been doing that the entire time? Okay. Okay. So I'll just keep going. Guys, tell me if there's something wrong with it again. Okay, so party with controversy. Spain a little, yeah. What? Okay. Controversy, Spain's Festival of Moors and Christians. So the Moors were the people that came into Iberia. Invading, these were mostly Muslims. They invaded Iberia, this Spain and Portugal, in like the 8th century. And then they at varying rates for the next like 800 years. And in 1492, the Reconquista is finished. Castile and Aragon, the kingdoms, they take out the Almohads or something. And then Spain is entirely Christian again. And after this, the okay. So wearing a plastic animal skull and long black feathers in her headdress, Cristina Morcia holds a spear and looks like she is going to war for an African tribe. This is an Al Jazeera article, if you're just listening to the audio, by the way. And this article was written very well, and that's one of the things I want to concentrate on here. Okay. So by day, she works in an import-export business, but tonight she is dressed up for the Fiesta of the Moros y Cristianos. That was terrible. Spanish for Moors and Christians. It's the reconquest of Iberia by Christian armies over Arab forces more than 500 years ago. The streets of Elda, a city of 80,000 people, best known for making women's shoes, are transformed once a year into a cross between a drama from the Middle Ages and a huge fancy dress party. Like scores of southeastern Spain, Elda marks the battles of the past with a very 21st century festival. Yeah, so Daniel says that's hot. There's an image on the video. It's a cool freaking costume. They got like crow's heads on. So Arab rulers have dominated nearly all of the Iberian Peninsula for about 700 years, and this is a huge thing in Spain. It was a huge thing at the time, and it is a huge thing now. You know, these were people in Spain that had invaded and were ruling over the indigenous people there who had converted to Christianity before the Muslims came in, and there is a celebration of this reconquest, but it's weird in the modern day, especially, you know, this is happening in Spain, which is of course the West, but Spain is not America. And we look at this, a lot of us will look at this from an American sense, and a lot of like people, mostly on the liberal side, at something like this and they would be like, oh, it's celebrating Christians killing Muslims, like that's not good, this is offensive. But at the same time, really what this is if this had happened in 1492, when the Reconquista actually ended, it was at the time and is still a celebration of an event that was the indigenous people decolonizing themselves. The forces of the Moors, the Islamic caliphate that was coming in and ruling over them, was in rule over indigenous people in that area. And we tend to not think about Europeans as people, but you know, the somewhere, and in this case, especially when this is a time when the people of the Iberian Peninsula were not necessarily very strong. This is after the fall of the Roman Empire. They conquer they reconquer. It's why it's called the Reconquest. They retake their lands from people who had ruled over them and made them live as second-class citizens based on their religion in their own home. They recaptured their land. So some take a fest for this. And by the way, this is an Al Jazeera article. This is from the Muslim world. And that's a part of why I think it's written so well, is that it's such a well-written and balanced article that I would really recommend reading, but it's done by the Muslims. 20-year war, Daniel says in the comments. Yes, it was really very, very long. They were stopped by Charles Martel, and when they stayed in Iberia, because Charles Martel stopped them from coming into France and the rest of Europe. There's a border there. There's a mountain range between what is now Spain and a pretty good natural barrier. Okay. I don't think it has much to do with history, but people just want to have fun. Verdu Martinez, 17, a school pupil, told Al. The Reconquista or Reconquest is known in Spain as a period of history covering the military conquest. So the controversy is that the word Moro is seen by some of Spain's sizable Muslim population as an insult, as it refers to someone from North Africa. Yes, there's lots of Moroccans, and here's where it would become a, especially in the vast parade, some wearing blackface makeup along with their exotic costumes. So some of them are in blackface. Organizers deny this is racist and insist makeup is only used to portray Africans who lived within the Arab kingdom. So yeah, so they're doing blackface, but it's not like blackface in the US comes from like explicitly racist caricatures of black people. Whereas in Europe, I'm not too familiar with it, but there is a long history of showing people in blackface images of black people. They're on some crests, I think. I think there's one in that has a crest like that. But there were some black people in Europe, and these weren't like the Moors themselves were not really black people, but some of the Moors, like some of the Muslims with them, and also many of their slaves, because the Islamic slave trade, which was mostly East Europeans and Sub-Saharan Africans, lasted for 500 years and was millions and millions of Sub-Saharan Africans were in this. That is why there is people in blackface in this, and they are just portraying those. So what's interesting here is that they're in blackface than the blackface that you'd have. It's offensive anyway. I mean, it's not my culture. Like I got no say in that, but it is interesting that it's blackface, but it's a different thing than us. It's like, yeah. So last year, the festival in the town of Orihuela near Alicante was criticized as racist because black people were pulling a carriage in which the Moorish ambassador or leader was white. I mean, yeah, that's weird. Like, that's the history of it, right? Like, the Moors were a large Caucasian, as in they were Northern African, which is considered by the American census as well as by anthropology. It's considered white. You might not think of it as white in the United States, but they were white and they had a lot of black sub-Saharan slaves. I mean, maybe it's offensive to portray that, but people should know that that was what it was, and they're recreating that. Yeah, and of course the Spanish far right is coming up. Next thing we're going to talk about is migrant crisis. So the New York City sues counties refusing to house migrants. So what's happening is New York City has filed a lawsuit on Wednesday accusing more than 30 New York counties by moving to block the city from relocating hundreds of migrants. So New York City wants upstate New York to house all these migrants that are coming into New York from, and they have so many of them. They're trying to put them into hotels, and they don't have enough hotels. So they're now trying to ship them into hotels in upstate New York. And they're suing New York County because they're trying to stop them from doing that. And it's uh, oh my god. I mean, it's crazy in a number of ways. I don't even know where to start because you're putting the migrants. So you have this pull factor that you're creating in New York City where the each other and they're saying like, "Hey, if we go to New York City, they'll give us a place to stay." And look, I don't blame anybody for taking that rule, for taking that I don't blame anybody for taking that deal. I would take that deal. You get a you come here, I take that deal. You take that um but they regardless of like the legality of it, I think that we should all be honest that this is perhaps like it's something pretty difficult to to deal with, to expect a small town to deal with. Like hotels are meant for like visitors that come into the town, but if they're being filled up just because they're a place to stay by migrants, and that isn't like the normal people that are staying in a hotel. It's like it comes with its own bunch of issues, and I'm not saying that like I'm not saying that like my problem. I'm not saying that migrants are a problem. I'm saying that it, it comes with a lot a bunch of people that don't necessarily speak the language in it in the location, that aren't culturally in tune with the area. It creates and that's regardless of whether people are racist or whatever. It's I don't see how this is sustainable, because if you're paying for hotels for anybody that shows up and you're not defending the border and anybody is being allowed to show up, then you're just going to keep getting more people. Like, what are you going to do? Build hotels until we're housing the entire population of Central America and the Caribbean in upstate New York? You can't. It's ridiculous. And the bleeding heart liberal answer is like, well, you have to help these people, but like helping them where they are is probably um. But yeah, Daniel's saying in the comments, these people are being trafficked, bro. And it's like, yeah, that was the legal argument that people were taking when DeSantis Airlines was dropping off people in Martha's Vineyard. But oh, and Daniel's also saying many of them are being brought here under false pretense. I fully believe that, because you know, a lot of these people, especially today, like 20 years ago, a lot of them were coming from Mexico. Today, a lot of these people are coming from Latin America. They're coming from Haiti, especially if they're coming from Haiti or from Latin America. They're fleeing violent places a lot of the time. They are being trafficked to America. Okay. But a lot of these people are fleeing places like Nicaragua, Haiti, that are very violent. And then they are moving in, and them going into Mexico is already dangerous. They're very vulnerable in Mexico as being people that aren't Mexican that are there. And they have to go through all of Mexico to get to the southern border with the US. And then they have to get into the US, and then they're still vulnerable, probably less vulnerable than they were in Mexico, but they're still vulnerable. And there are all sorts of problems that they can get along the way. You know, women can be assaulted, men can be assaulted. Both men and women can be sexually and just regularly assaulted. It's not a good situation. And they're doing this because, and more of them are coming, think they can, and they think they have a chance. And it's not sustainable for all of them to come. And if they think that they're going to get things here, some of them are, some of them aren't, but it's not sustainable. That's that. And incentivizing, just like they incentivize homeless people to go to California, is not the way to solve it. It's not the way to solve it. Okay. So China's targeting of U.S. firms is politically motivated. U.S. ambassadors. Yeah, I bet China is targeting. Doug Dimmadome, who is a Mexican American, by the way. He's a white Mexican American, but he's a Mexican American, so we can listen to his opinion on that. I'm sorry. Doug Dimmadome, who is a Latinx American. That is the proper term that we're supposed to call them. Just kidding, by the way, that term sucks. But China is targeting U.S. firms. Okay, the United States will push back on China's targeting of American, such as memory chip maker Micron Technology Inc. A campaign considers politically motivated and unfair, U.S. Ambassador to China Nicholas Burns said on Wednesday. Okay, yes, we have done the same thing. We should be doing the same thing. You can't blame them. You can't blame them. They can do this. I mean, they don't want their chips. They don't want American chips in Chinese military equipment. That's what this is about. Of course they don't. I bet the U.S. wants their chips in the Chinese medical equipment or the Chinese military equipment because they are like some sort of espionage. I bet there are. I bet that's what they're doing to us as well. So this is from U.S. News. They're complaining that there is a politically motivated element to in U.S. firms, and I am sure that that's correct. But like, so what, dude? So what? They do it to us too. You're clutching your pearls, and they're not mentioning what we do. Maybe they do at some point in this article, but that's all I got to say about that. Yeah, Doug is saying, yeah, don't call me Latinx. Yes, that was a joke. Obviously, Latinx is a terrible term, and anyone who says it is dog whistling that they're ignorant and the only Hispanic friends that they have are the ones that they met in college who drink the same freaking white Kool-Aid they do. Okay, Pence attacks Trump as he challenges his ex-boss in 2024 White House. I brought this up to say who cares? Who cares if Pence is running for president? Nobody likes this guy. Nobody likes this guy. I didn't even know. This article is from June 7th. I found it June 8th at night. I found it 36 hours after it happened. Nobody's got a chance. It's a Biden versus if he can stay out of jail and DeSantis if he can't. And I don't know, maybe that's a hot take, but we'll see. Okay. Pence attacks Trump as he challenges his ex-boss. That's it. I don't have much to say. Human Rights Campaign declares LGBTQ state of emergency in the U.S. So Human Rights Campaign, by the way, this is the largest LGBTQ advocacy organization in the United States, on Tuesday declared its first national state of emergency. First time they've ever declared this national state of emergency, citing the proliferation of legislation in state houses across the country aimed at regulating queer people. Yeah, so you can evaluate this on your own. I'm not going to speak about this too much. The reason that I'm bringing up this much, the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the major audio issue. Never mind, it's back to normal. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to work. I'm gonna have to hardwire. I'm gonna figure this shit out. Okay. So Human Rights Campaign, like the article says, the largest LGBTQ advocacy organization in the United States. They are saying that there is this massive issue with LGBTQ people in the U.S. And I don't buy the argument. I don't believe the argument. There was on a podcast. It was Jose Galson's podcast, No Way Jose, with Dave Smith arguing with someone else, or debating with someone else about this. And I thought they both had some good arguments, but ultimately I side with Dave Smith. Obviously, I side with Dave Smith, but ultimately, I mean, his points were more convincing to me and their values. But but they are the point of this is that this is a non-governmental agency. Okay, this is the Human Rights Campaign is this massive organization that has a ton of funding, and if you look into their funding, I should have looked into their funding before, but they're always look into it yourself. HRC, Human Rights Campaign. Who funds them? Who funds them? Who gives them money? Where is that money coming from? What is that money being used to do? What is their real goal? Who are the people that's working in the organization? We're going to go into specifics of that at certain, but these are important things to know. In campaign, they have all this legitimacy as this large non-government organization, and people, some people, less people than it used to be, care what these large organizations have to say. And I certainly don't care very much. I just want to point out that this is what's happening. This organization that has its own, that I believe represents the interests of the upper class, like many of these large non-governmental organizations, they represent the interests of the upper class in one way or another. The Rockefeller organization, the Carnegie organization, this is where this money comes from. Okay. The U.S. cannot ban people convicted of crimes from owning guns. Appeals court. So this was an article the other day where this man, Brian Range, who was barred under federal law from possessing a gun after pleading guilty to welfare fraud. He claimed the prohibition violated his right to under the Second Amendment of the United States. Okay, so he pleaded guilty in 1995 to committing welfare fraud in Pennsylvania in $2,458 of food stamps, a misdemeanor punishable with imprisonment. He was sentenced to 3 years probation. I don't care. I'm glad that this happened. This is a small little win for gun rights in the U.S. for the Second Amendment. This guy committed welfare fraud, and he was, I assume, convicted. Yeah, he pleaded guilty. So he was convicted of fraud. What does that have to do with owning a gun? The argument from the judge that dissented says, whereas here the legislature has made a reasonable and considered judgment to disarm those who show disrespect for the law, it is not the place of unelected judges to substitute that judgment with their own, wrote Circuit Judge Cheryl Ann Krause, one of the dissenters. So yeah, so what she's saying is that the legislature decided that this guy shouldn't be armed. He law, so he shouldn't be armed, and she's mad that this guy is allowed to have a gun to defend himself. But, you know, why don't you disarm the U.S. government? What about the people that lied to get us into Iraq? What about the people that lied to get us into Afghanistan? What about the people that invaded Iraq again, that betrayed the Kurds, bombed hospitals and weddings, drone strikes and all this shit? But this guy, because he committed welfare fraud for $2,458, which is nothing compared to what large plead guilty to all the time, and that's done by individual. Whatever. Look, the point is, Second Amendment good. You shouldn't stop a nonviolent criminal from having a gun. It's your goddamn right as an American. From the comments, there is a massive issue with LGBT people in the U.S., but it's not the way they mean. So I see what you're saying there, and I think you're saying the issue is with LGBTQ people. And I'm just going to read that comment and move on. You see Gavin Newsom's new video for the Second Amendment. Yes, I did. Gavin Newsom is a tyrant. I really, really dislike him. Okay. 2 more articles. This one is from the Jerusalem. China sends ripples through the gold bullion market and no one noticed. Yeah, this isn't really being talked about. Okay. So the People's Bank of China took the next important step to encourage a wider and less wealthy section of Chinese citizens to purchase gold and silver bullion. The PBOC, this is the People's Bank of China, I assume that's their central bank, opened the facility for citizens to convert renminbi cash savings held in the public's own bank accounts to be converted into physical gold at the click of a button. What does it mean, speak poor white to me? Daniel, what does what mean? Okay. So, China, they have been, that wasn't the white power symbol, by the way. I was doing the Trump thing. Yeah, if I did this and I was black, it would be a 3-pointer in NBA games that they do all the time. But since I'm white, I got to say it's not the white power symbol. China. Okay. They have been buying gold since 2010. This is a huge thing. Gold in 2010 was worth $1,100 when the Chinese government started to advertise gold investments to its population. By no coincidence, not once since then has the gold price traded below that level. In fact, since then, we regularly see Shanghai gold trading at prices that are at a $50 premium to the gold spot price. Okay, just so we're clear, silver and gold, I think pretty much everywhere are trading at a premium above the spot price, and they have for a while, which means that basically worldwide the spot price is fake. Spot price is just the regular, the standard price of an ounce of gold or silver, or of whatever quantity. So this is important because they've been stocking up on gold and silver. I think other countries have lost a lot of theirs. They've been selling off a lot of theirs. And it's kind of crazy because it seems obvious to me that gold is a good thing to have. And not only is the Chinese government stocking up on that, but they are encouraging their... And, you know, I'm actually a little bit surprised about this. I have to, like... I don't even know if I think this is true because unless, which is likely the case, the Chinese are simply selling their citizens their own gold. So it's, you know, it's a transfer where the Chinese government still holds on to the physical gold, but they are allowing their citizens to, like, own it. The article said that at the click of a button, they can change the ownership of it. The audio has been gone for a couple of minutes now. Oh, no, guys. Oh, God. Okay. I'm going to have to see how this audio was after this. So China will play a role. It might just be you guys. This video might be totally fine. It's just you. But whatever. Okay. So gold might be overvalued, or it could be whatever. It's possible that China is going to support the level of gold. They're going to support a certain price of gold. And that gold, but what it means is that there's a finite amount of gold. So over time, the price of gold will have to go up unless people start selling it down. And gold's important. Gold is a long-term, it's always been a measure of wealth, always been a measure of wealth for basically all of human history. We've always used gold. We've always used silver, precious metals. Other things have come and gone. Different physical currencies have come and gone, but gold and silver have always been around. And when you look at the U.S. and you look how the U.S. government is in massive amounts of debt, and we still have some gold as well, but overall massive amounts of debt, and you look at how Americans themselves are in massive debt, and then you look at China, which is building up their gold supply, it demonstrates a difference in attitude amongst both the Chinese government and the Chinese people versus the attitude of Americans. And I think it's one that doesn't really bode well for us. Their own problems as well. And this is my last article. And this article is titled, "Who is Baby Gronk? Did Livy riz him up? What does any of this really mean?" And this is an NBC article about a TikTok video. And I put this one in here at the... and Okay, so I'm seeing. So Doug is having problems with his Texas internet connection. DB, you're doing okay. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Okay, so I'll listen. I'm gonna listen back to this recording afterwards. I'm gonna have to edit a few parts of this anyway. I pop it onto the RSS feed for the podcast, but um, I'm gonna be hardwiring the Wi-Fi so that I won't have issues like this anymore. So I mean, on your end, it still might happen, but what I'm worried about is having good enough audio to then put out into the podcast. Well, it's I mean, I guess if it's live, it's kind of okay if you have seconds, but it's especially better if it's like DB is saying that you can still follow what I'm saying. Okay, so this is an NBC article that is literally written about a TikTok video, and I just wanted to the cultural moment of this. Okay, because this is something that NBC, a established news organization, they know that people are somewhat interested in for whatever reason, and this is something that's going to get them views that people are going to click on. And I clicked on it, worked on me. And did Livy riz him up? What does any of this really mean? And what is important about this, riz means charisma, by the way. I learned that from my niece a few weeks ago. She's 14. It's charisma. So you riz him up, you're using your charisma. So this article shows what the culture thinks is important. And, once I got into this article, it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But what you see here is there is a 10-year-old. Nope, I'm not playing this. I am not playing this. Okay. That's the TikTok video. You can go to this article and watch it if you want. It's very awkward. It's a 10-year-old football player who's known as Baby Gronk, who has a following on Instagram, apparently. Already very good. And he uploaded a video where he went to LSU and he met this 19-year-old, I think, who is a gymnast, 7 million TikTok followers. And there was a link of this, and apparently Baby Gronk, who's 10, committed to LSU. So it has all these things. It has social media, it has college football, and it has young influencers. All of these things that are in American culture at this time. Gronk, the kid's name is Madden San Miguel, and he's got 319,000 followers on his Instagram account. He's been around since he was 6 years old. But what I love about this, what I love about this is his dad talking about it. So his dad understands culture. He understands American culture. So Madden's father, the kid's name is Madden San Miguel, by the way. His dad, Jake San Miguel, 100% created this kid to be a freaking NFL star. And I assume he's a tight end if he's called Baby Gronk, because that's the position that Gronk played. But this is what his dad says. So my goal is to build him a following where he is making money now and it's going into a savings account. Amazing, setting the kid up for the future. I have certain thoughts about the kid being public on social media, but if that's why you're doing it and the way you're doing it, that way he can live a good life without struggle. It's the insurance behind sports. You don't have to go pro. Like Livy Dunny, she's set for life already because of the internet. So he's bringing up this woman that they've done a little collaboration with, this young woman who's not 19, she's 20 years old. She's set for life already. 7 million TikTok followers. She's already monetized herself. I'm sure gymnasts don't make a lot of money unless you're Simone Biles and you're like America's sweet. All these deals that you should get. Simone Biles, you're amazing. But like with the following, this kid doesn't have to worry of if he tears his ACL his senior year of playing at LSU or wherever he goes, and then he doesn't make the NFL, but he's got freaking CTE. So, but this dad understands that this is how you make money in this country. This is how you make it in this country. I don't know if I like the 20-year-old girl with the 10-year-old doing a whole hugging thing, but this is the video. This is a freaking video. So I don't know if you Yeah, well, I'll find out later. But like, you don't even have to be to put videos on the internet. They were both. I mean, he's 10. I don't blame her. I don't blame him. But like, they're both really awkward, not good actors. She's a young, attractive girl. You know, he's good at football in 10. Um, I I got no words, man. I don't know. I mean, good for the dad, but what a weird thing. What a weird thing that this is an article on the internet today. That this is being posted by a NBC News, National Broadcast Center, or whatever. All right, I'm gonna end it there. I got nothing else. Does anybody have any questions before I hop off? Back now or later is totally appreciated as well, because I'm gonna work out other ways to do this. What I'll probably do next time is like grab some excerpts that I want to concentrate on the articles. I'd read all the articles before, but it's not super easy to find it immediately when there's something you want to talk about. Um, and obviously, I've been rearranging my office quite a bit. I'm getting some new equipment, so the background of this is gonna be changed quite a bit soon. Um, yeah. Anybody got anything? Okay. Find me on Twitter, Discord, YouTube comments. Those are the three best ways probably to reach me. The best way to reach me is probably Twitter. Twitter. Probably send me a message on Twitter or tweet at me. I don't know. People don't try to reach me that much. Thanks for the amazing work. What the hell are you talking about? Seems like the dad is making money and the kid is the product. Yeah, Daniel, it seemed from that article, and like, if the dad is being straight up honest, then he is putting money in a savings account for the kid, and he is setting him up where he's going to take that over later. So uh, I don't know. I do have mixed feelings about it. It just depends. I get the feeling, though, I don't know, that the dad in this case isn't like, Britney Spears' dad, and who I think probably took advantage of her, and Jeanette McCurdy's mom, who took advantage of her, and so many situations that we know of like that. Um, so if the dad is telling the truth, I think it's generally an okay thing for him to do. But I don't know what else is going on behind the scenes. I prefer to just be a normal kid. But yeah, thank you guys for engaging. I really appreciate that, and I'll be back. I'll be putting out a general time for me to do the live shows, probably Thursday night around 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm gonna find a time that works with people in different time zones. I kind of got to look at where my listeners are and where people who would be interested in the live show are. I have a lot of listeners in Seattle, but I assume I have more on the East Coast. I got to look at the cities. Seattle is my number one city, but I think there's more on the East Coast in general overall. But we'll see. Wednesdays are good, or Wednesday's better for you, Daniel. I mean, we'll see. I could do Wednesday, I could do Thursday, but regardless, what I'm going to be doing is uploading these. They'll stay on YouTube, live posted, but I'll also be uploading. I'll also be putting them on the Illegitimate Scholar podcast feed under a different title. And I assume all of you that are here are aware of that. All right. Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks, DB, Daniel, Doug, you Latinx, not Latinx. All right. Later. Thank you.